Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mountain View living room here on campus. We're gonna dive a bit deeper into everything you saw today, from background agents and custom agents and cloud agents and all the new customizations that just shipped yesterday. So it's hot off the press. So this is a follow along lab. So the cool part is I have a few people in the audience, so I'm gonna look to everybody in the audience how close you are in following along, and then hopefully people remotely will do the same. So the lab's called SOC Ops, Social Ops, and it's connected to, after this session here in the office, we're actually gonna have a little happy hour. So the goal of today, and especially for people here in the audience, to get this whole thing building, and in the end, you should have your own little personalized social bingo app that you can bring to the happy hour, make friends, and bring the good vibes. So what I want you to do now, here and everybody listening in, is check out the latest VS Code. Make sure you have no updates pending because the team just shipped a new one yesterday. Then make sure you signed in with GitHub. If you're on Copilot free, you won't get to the cloud agent. So make sure you got Pro or your enterprise subscription. You got Git and Node installed in your development environment. So everything is open and ready for action. So the repo we're going to use is, if you run it, it looks like this. So it runs as a GitHub page once you got it set up. And it's a little game where you can then find people that have interesting, in this case, attributes like loves spicy food, does yoga, and has garden, and then you got the bingo. So beautiful app to get a conversation started and get to know people around you. So the repository itself, I have a link here to make this bigger. So it's github.com/Microsoft/VS Code-agent-lab-SOC-ops. So get that opened. That's the first step. I guess I'll leave it up for a moment. And then there's a button on the page in the top right for use this template and create new repository. While people type this in, I'm gonna have it open here as well. So we're gonna up here, use this template and create new repository. We'll bring you to a page that looks like this. Create new repository, the template is up here, and then you can choose yourself as an owner, and then my awesome SOC ops, I guess bingo, my awesome bingo, that's that. This will be your name. You can pick whatever you like. You don't have to give it a description. You have to make it public, though. That's otherwise you need to have special access to make it a pages work. And then you hit create repository. Raise your hand if you got that far. Okay, wow. Beautiful. Yes, link again. It's also up. Zoom in. Okay. So what this repository comes with is basically, it's a simple byte React app with table WL. This one. I can't hear the question. The URL. It's github.com/Microsoft/VS Code. Is it showing? Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So what this repository has, as you get this cloned, we're going to take a look at it. So now open up VS Code, and then you got to do the git clone from GitHub. You're going to do that in the other window I already have open. So I have an empty VS Code here. I can go right into the source control view and click clone repository. And from my page that I did, which is up here, my awesome bingo, I can copy out the local link. Okay, how many people got the template for it and ready? There we go. Few. You got it? Raise your hand. Okay, got critical mass to continue the thing. So in VS Code, everybody got VS Code open. If you want to use the command, there's also a command for clone, git clone. You go in here, git clone the command palette, and enter that URL that you just copied out of GitHub, which in this case is github.com/digitarl/myawesomebingo.git. Hit enter, and it will ask you where to save it. I have a developer folder that I put stuff in. If you want to put it on WSL or your Ubuntu, wherever you want to put it, wherever you usually put your code. And then it's already cloned, and I can open it in the same window. And I get this. So if you got that far, again, raise your hand. You're my audience to see how far people get. If you get stuck, ask people that raise their hand to see if they can get you unstuck. The reason this might be failing that you don't have Git installed or any of the other dependencies, but otherwise it should be pretty smooth. Okay, once you have it open, you can start poking around at the code base. Most importantly, there's a .lab folder with a guide.md, which will be our guide for this lab. And the thing you have looked at before. So, quick raise of hands, how far people are at? Do people see this in front of them? Yeah. If you don't, it's all documented in the guide. So if you get to it later, you can also follow along in your own time later. So don't get worried. What you can do with this guide, because this will be where you copy out prompts and everything else along the way, I actually going to pin it. If I right-click this tab and click pin, it's not going to close as I clean up my tabs and open other stuff. In this case, my pinning makes it collapse. Your pinning might look different. But yeah, let's talk about learning objectives. So as people get ready with their cloning and finish up, we're going to talk about when you're done with this lab, you understand how to bring AI into your code base, how to onboard it with context engineering that brings instructions and everything else. So AI out of the box works better and understands your code base much better and deeper. Next up is the understanding of agentic primitives. So you can build your AI-first workflows. Because the out-of-the-box stuff we bring helps the 80% of tasks, but in many cases, you want to customize Copilot further to your workflows and the way your team works with these agentic primitives. And there's a lot of abundance that can be unlocked with these agentic systems when you use them to run more things in parallel, and which can scale exploration and the speed of learning for yourself or your team. So that's something we're going to explore later. And lastly, you hopefully at the end felt the vibes of a cozy Wednesday afternoon session of vibe coding. And you have an app ready that you designed and built that you can run and show your friends and make friends using the app. So quick check of hands, who's got the VS Code working like I look at it now? Yeah. Few. Because we need to build a better custom agent that just gets your thing ready and cloned. I did add one piece of AI here to get you set up, which is a welcome prompt. So once you have it installed and ready, and you can open the chat on the side either with this icon on top or with the sidebar, and then you do /setup. get /setup. And that little prompt, we can take a look at it. So you can just run it. I'll run it. I have nothing to set up. But it's a little helper that takes all the effort off your plate to understand what things to install, what dependencies might be missing. It will basically run everything for you. In this case, it will check npm install. It will run linting. It will run builds. Move this down. And run the dev server in the end. And all of these are just prompt crafted into your goal is to successfully build and run the workspace and giving a checklist of tasks to achieve. So then to give it step by step what it needs to do, but it understands how to install dependencies. It understands all these things as a conceptual thing. It just needs to give it a checklist like, I want these things to happen. In this case, dev server, open the browser preview, which we're going to see here. My game is running. Wonderful. And now it's giving me a quick tour. No. Oh, no, it wants to create a welcome to a component, and we don't want that. We don't explain. Maybe we should explain. So if it starts creating files, it went too far. It also doesn't know how to create files because it didn't give it an edit tool, so it prints them out as a code block. All right. Quick check on the guide. So if you just joined, this is the repo, Microsoft /VS Code agent lab sock ops. Otherwise, ask the person next to you, or check the recording. Everything we're going to walk through is in here. Okay, we are 15 minutes in, so we're going to get started. So if you check this out, if you ran the setup prompt, you should have a working version in front of you with the guide pinned and the browser showing you the game in a working order. The free space is free, and then I can just play the game. So what else is in here? So we have it actually added some MCPs for later. So the VS Code folder has an mcp.json. I added some of the settings we just shipped to make sure you're using all the latest features we just enabled. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If you are late, if you have the repo checked out, then in the guide you can follow along. Yes. Oh. There you go. Okay, once it's checked out, you can follow along. Back to the guide. Okay, so first step, this repository has a bunch of stuff already, but what it doesn't have is Copilot instructions. And the agent actually tells us in this beginning screen that I should generate some agent instructions. If you haven't seen them, let's create them and see what they look like. But what it basically does, what instructions look like, is they want to have a succinct minimap and intro to the repository that the agent is always aware of. So most of the time, you want to give it some basic understanding of what the repo is about, kind of what is the product you're working on, and then give it a brief overview about where different artifacts of the repo are, which folders logic is in, and what the general rules to contribute are to the repo. Most oftentimes, you end up with a file like this. When you auto-generate it, Copilot will look at different files and understand what's happening. And it will basically look at those files, look at some more files. And then we'll start already to document what is happening in the repository. So if you haven't done it yet, first is to generate chat instructions. It's also in the menu up here. So you can trigger it from the agent window or trigger it from the menu or a command. Once you have that, it goes pretty fast. We also, because we're using Haiku, which is a sneaky little fast model, we can now actually go down and maybe, if it's too long, let's copy out this prompt from the guide, because this is still a lot of stuff around like what the features are. There's some extra examples of local storage API. We don't necessarily need all of that to have the agent understand how this thing works, because it can just look it up eventually. So we can tell it, compress it down by half, You want to have this very succinct, very small, because all of these instructions will be in every request. The more we can optimize these tokens and compress them down and still keep the meaning, the better. And what I also want, we just learned about checklists from the setup prompt. So this can help a ton with making sure that every time we change anything big, that linting and building and testing is happening. We want to give the agent another checklist because agents love checklists. So we're going to ask it to compress down by half and add the checklist into the instructions as a follow-up. So always treat these auto-generated instructions as a draft. You want to make sure they're correct and you keep working on them. Okay, that's done the edit. Now we have a checklist on front. We have the architecture a little bit pointed out, much shorter. Let's talk about styling with Tailwind and some common tasks like adding to the question TS. So that's a good first step. I haven't even looked at the code yet for the code base, and you don't have to necessarily, because the agent just has documented it for itself and for later purposes. So we can actually, one recommendation I put up in the guide is every time we have a working state, let's commit. And we can auto-generate and commit. Okay, who created instructions already? Yeah, none of these things is blocking the next step. So if you fall behind on one step and want to jump to the next task, we can just do that. So let's try a background agent. So in VS Code, we just shipped a method for actually running things in the background in parallel. So why this could have finished, I could have already started, go into the big plus menu up here and the drop down and hit background agent. And these background agents run in isolated Git work trees. So all of the changes they do won't conflict with whatever the agent has been doing on the main agent, but you can actually pull them in once they're done and merge them back. So one thing that's really important for agents and for humans when they work on the code base is having good linting rules. So the one thing we're going to add some slightly stricter linting rules for things like unused variables and await uses. Because one thing that you notice when you use AI is that agents are good at adding new features, but really bad at cleaning up after themselves. And just checking for unused bars is a good hint to the agent that it probably added some new feature somewhere or refactored something else, but it might have forgotten some code that's still idling around and it's not actually being used. And what's cool, because this agent runs in VS Code, any linting rules any red squiggles that you get in VS Code, the agent also sees automatically once they edit files. So you see now it created an isolated work tree, and how this looks like. Doesn't look like. We'll now edit it. We see this up here now. So we have a work tree, the lexical whippet, where changes are coming in, where it runs the linter, actually has to npm install because it's a new work tree, it's a new checkout, it doesn't have the dependencies yet. And then it can make the changes. And we don't actually need to watch that. We can just put it to the side and keep it working. And that's a new concept in VS Code, that you can actually just open up a new agent and the old agents will continue in the background. That's new. And that's something I think mentally I had to switch my own working style around to not just stare at the agent doing stuff. So now you can think about what else can I do? Can I do the next planning step? In this case, I can scroll down. I could now also do README is kind of boring. So let's actually open the Cloud Agent, new Cloud Agent, and send it the prompt to make the README more engaging, which is always a good thing to a project. Like we want to adopt some new contributors to the project as we have this new social ops bingo experience. In this case, the Cloud Agent won't work in a work tree, but actually will create a PR in the repository. And it will show up here. So now we have this background agent that changes. The Cloud Agent started making changes, and we have this completed. So we have already multiple agents we invoked in different parts. The Cloud Agents will work in the PR, and we see an update here once it made the changes, and we can accept the PR or bring it back in. The background agent worked in a work tree, and we can bring these changes in with a simple keep and apply. And we got the ESLint config now back in our main branch. So this is a change that happened in the work tree. And now this change is now back in our work tree. So it fixed it all. Let's make sure it actually run. It did run the linting. Everything passed. That's great. And that's how you can now much better understand that the agent did a good job to actually create working code and not something that fails out of the box. They ran the linting and the build out of the step. Okay, let's commit that. That's the working. The background agent we just merged. We can archive that. That's done. That's done. And that's done. Okay. The cloud agent we can check in later. We don't have to do it now. Okay, back to the guide. Anybody who hasn't gotten to the custom instruction step yet or past that? Everybody still caught up? Question.
So we were kind of used to have everything done in the Visual Studio, but when you're running in a background agent or a cloud agent, like things like, for example, like a state of Azure CLI status login or some secrets that you might have in your repo that you work with locally, what's the best practices around that?
That's a good question. The coding agent has access to the secrets on your GitHub Actions. So we'll be able to run everything that you run in GitHub Actions. The coding agent can also run there. Locally, it's whatever kind of local environment you have to manage those. Okay, one more and then I'll continue.
I see you call this agent by plus, and then you select the agent you want to call out. Is it possible that you give a task, it selects the agent automatically for you?
Yes. Automatically in ways, so there's multiple ways to trigger them. Let's walk through the next one. So just two things I want to highlight that you can check out later as well to understand instructions better. I have two instructions already in the project that are domain specific. So one is the front-end design instructions. We actually just copied from the blog post from that the Cloud folks did. And it's kind of how do you get Claude out of making purple gradients is kind of the main effect of this instruction. If you've ever seen vibe-coded websites, you usually can see that it's a vibe-coded website by it being filled with like large types of the same font and purple gradients. So what it usually tells it, like, don't use overuse generic fonts, pick a good aesthetic, and then avoid overused font families. Don't use cliche color themes, predictable layouts. So it's trying to nudge it out of its comfort zone with the safe design themes it picks by default, and that really does wonders. So that's a great prompt to have if you work on front end, but also think about where else you want to nudge AI out of its defaults. And then I want to Tailwind CSS before, and that's a big pain point I have as soon as I go into vibe coding and use the latest stacks, is that there's just a slight missing knowledge of these latest stacks in the agent. So it does understand Tailwind CSS3 by default. Anytime I ask it to make Tailwind, it will default to whatever is like the majority in its training data. So there's a prompt down here that you can check. That this is what I used to fill in this instruction. I gave it a web search tool, part of GitHub MCP, and ask it for a one-pager that's minimal prose and compact to explain Tailwind v4 specific development essentials to a front-end developer. So it doesn't have to go into like how to install it, like why it matters. I just want the best practices that I would tell a front-end dev like my agent. And this is what I end up with, really on point of just like this. These are the theming primitives that are new in v4. Anything that's kind of outside of the training data, layer it on top. So really great practice to write instructions for parts of your code base. And if you want to try it out, just basically nuke the file and try it out from scratch. So these are the Tailwind 4 instructions and the front-end instructions. So anybody who has a setup running can now join more fun stuff. Otherwise, you can also try it out at home alone and have more time experimenting. So next one is design first, front-end binding. So we've context engineered repo. You can get creative. Now we're going to use plan mode. Who has been using plan mode in VS Code, Copilot? So not enough people. So very good. You open up a new agent and you go down to the plan in your agent dropdown. And we're going to put in this prompt. Let's do a full redesign. And we just gave it really good front-end instructions to get more creative. So I expect excellence. And I gave you some ideas of like, what could this redesign be? And that's where you can pick your own adventure. I usually went with Vaporware Wave in my Sunset, which always looks great. Great kind of 70s vibes. I'm going to do Cozy Coffee Shop because that's where we are at. So let's see how that looks like. I definitely am excited to see what you're coming up with. Feel free to pick your own design here as well. Skeuomorphic stickers is probably something I would try out if I didn't have just one option. Okay, let's do a full redesign. We're in plan mode. So what happens now is the agent by default will think much deeper around how to apply what you're asking to the code base. And right now, what I ask it is a very broad request. So it has a lot of room to explore what this actually means. Like, what does a redesign to Cozy Coffee Shop actually mean in terms of like what the design is? So it's reading a bunch of files. It's doing all this work, as you can tell, in its own little container somehow. So all these things are under research current design. And that is what we call a sub-agent. It's isolated in its own context, and it just brings back the research. So it looks at a ton of files. It looks at multiple files, and it just thinks about these files and to solve, basically, to give an answer back to the research question it got, which in this case is, please make a plan. Yeah, well, wait, so you have a question. Yeah, we can do it. There you go.
It's a very basic question. The difference between the plan mode and then the agent mode. If I do things in the agent mode, will it automatically make the changes to the file that I'm working on? And the plan mode, it's still thinking and it doesn't commit or make changes to the file. Is that right? Or why should we do the plan mode versus agent mode?
Yes. So that's it's like I missed to talk about why plan mode a bit more. So the big parts of plan mode from a kind of trust and confidence perspective is that plan mode allows you a much easier review than the final code. So anytime you have a larger code change, even though your request might have more ambiguity, so that's often where things fall apart in agentic conversations, is the agent makes assumptions of what you're asking. So the plan mode pulls those assumptions out. So you can see now in the plan mode, we have what it wants to change. It picked the color palette already, did some other stuff, but then it asked about like what would be the typography, because we didn't define that. So it pulls out anything that you might not have specifically answered in that original request, and really pulls it out in a way you can quickly answer. So it already gives you some defaults and some suggestions in those questions as well. So that's one. And it's much easier to iterate on that versus once you have code already written, giving feedback on that, it gets a lot harder because it then has to iterate across the whole code again and potentially revise very basic assumptions that it had while writing the code. And it's also easier to read. Once you have a plan that looks really sound and doesn't have any like big breaking considerations still open, any assumptions, then you have a much higher confidence that the resulting code follows everything you just said, versus a broad kind of prompt crafting approach where you iterate through smaller changes. Okay, so we got this going. The guide says we should review this and it's up here. Review plan and start implementation. Let's do that, implementation and start. We have the browser open, so we can actually follow along. So cozy coffee shop. Let's see what it looks like. Any guesses? I guess like brown tones, like cozy vibes. Let's see what it looks like. So a few things we just shipped. So one, To-Dos has been shipping for a while, but has been polished since the last release before that. We actually now put them down here. So you can follow along what the agent's working on. In this case, it needs to update the index, put a color palette, redesign the start screen with, warm cream and coffee tones, perfect. And the bingo square will get cappuccino color, which definitely sounds coffee. And the view restyle will be all warm coffee theme. So that looks perfect. Once it's done, still thinking. So now actually you see more of these thinking squares. We now have thinking enabled for Claude models and GPT-5. So a lot of the work, if you use Copilot in the past, will now be happening in these thinking blocks as well. Yeah.
Sorry, another question. For the plan mode, is there any way you can essentially make it a task list and it just follows along, and maybe like you have certain tasks done by the background agents?
Yes. Yeah, you can do it. We'll try it out in a moment as well. Yeah. Sorry. Too quiet.
Oh, apologies. Sorry about that. I was just wondering, is there no way to review like a before and after a visual representation of what it would look like before we implement?
Before you do changes, so having a before-after screenshot. I think that's where PRs work better. Kind of you want to see, but yeah, I actually had this question today as well from somebody else, like just want to toggle the changes on and off. It's a cool feature request, I think, because sometimes you just want to see visually. But now actually I could follow along. This is what it looks like. This is my warm coffee color. Change the font. Let's see how this looks like when it's completed. Cozy coffee house. But yeah, in this case, I could actually, if I had done this in a work tree with a background agent, I could actually toggle between the two easier. So that's something where also background agents or using the cloud agents helps as well. Yeah. Okay, now we made a design change, and actually we have a design system. We went with this bold, cozy coffee house that really makes for interesting, engaging bingo. So what we're going to do, we're going to add the design guide, because we have all this conversation. This conversation is now filled with design decisions that we want to reflect in any later changes. Otherwise, next edit we make is going to go back to our kind of boring out-of-the-box tailwind for design. So what we ask is, we're going to add the design section to Copilot instructions. We can keep the prior changes. Cozy coffee house, it's here to stay, like it. And we can also, I think, already push maybe. So we get an updated page. Coffee. I love commit messages. It's very important. Coffee, push. There you go. And then we have updated instructions too. Okay, let's see what it actually changed. It did the document the color palette, which color accent and brown accent, which are there. So Copilot can make better use of the color palette that's predefined. Defined the font family, Georgia serif, and a coffee cup emoji for branding. It's always a good fallback. Otherwise, yeah. So very succinct design rules. So anything we do now on will reflect that design. Yeah, question.
With the plan mode, do we have like a questionnaire where we can customize what we want rather than just go with what it gives us? Like what color palette or what font? Do we have the choice to pick them out?
Yeah. What it didn't do in my plan mode, it actually asked me like, which typography would you choose and which colors. So I could anytime go in, because it actually pointed out which colors it wants to use. So you can go in and adjust it and reply back to plan mode. These are the color palettes. I don't want an emoji. I have a real logo here. So you can keep, that's my recommendation for plan mode, at least iterating at least once. We're going from plan directly to implementation because it's a workshop, we don't have time. But otherwise, I would spend more time in plan mode than any other thing later on, because that leads to hard.
It would be much easier to have a questionnaire where we pick the most basic criteria, or I think that would help us out.
Yes, yeah. I think we're definitely looking at like, what is this section down here, the further consideration, to make it kind of more like, do you want to pick this, that, and that? Now it's very natural language focused. So I like to just go into dictation mode and kind of read through the spec and say, yes, no, oh, maybe we can do this, and then just send it back. So using inputs like dictation actually makes it a lot easier as well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, we're more than halfway through. Let's use a lot bigger redesign and using the power of the cloud. That's why I talked about abundance in the past. So we're going to open a new chat, and then we ask it for redesigning the start screen. Because you look at the start screen right now, keep playing, go back here. It's not, yeah, the logo is cool, but we need more. Okay, so redesign the start screen. Again, we go into plan mode. It's probably going to have a ton of questions because they didn't give it any details on what this is meant to do. But it's interesting with these kind of tasks, it's like sometimes I don't have a good sense. Like there's a lot of tasks we work on where we have a general direction of where we want to go, but there's a lot of ambiguity where we actually want to go and how we get there. And plan mode can help pull out some of these things. Like it will make some assumptions, which might be wrong. Like the colors, it assumed like, what does color, warm coffee house colors mean? It made some good assumptions, but we can still steer it like to a specific color palette we might want. In this case, we see it reads the front-end design instructions, which is good. So hopefully we get some very bold aesthetics and looked at all the other components. And then the next prompt we'll execute, we'll look at that because that one does the heavy lifting, is the Cloud Explorer. Oh no, sounds fun. I'm using an experimental TypeScript extension here, so. All good. Still running the plan. So Cloud Explorer is using the GitHub MCP. Who has been using MCPs? Just get a sense. So MCPs are these little protocol servers that allow you to connect your agent to different servers and infrastructure and to other agents. So it's just a communication protocol. And you shouldn't even think about MCP. I just install basically GitHub into my Copilot, and it now speaks GitHub. In this case, it can actually create new pull requests and assign them to the coding agent, which is a really powerful way to just say, here's a task, hand it off to the cloud. I don't want to think about it for a while. And then you come back once you do it. So best pattern that I think we pointed out throughout the day, AI Dev Day, is at the end of your day, figure out what you want to do first the next day and just send all these tasks as coding agent PRs. And then the next day you come back and you have some ideas and drafts of where to start your day. So in this case, now we have a plan. It came up with a layered atmosphere, geometric coffee-inspired patterns. That sounds great. I have no idea what it means, so we're going to look at that. A stronger call to action. The one elevate typography. I think it sounds really bold. Let's do it. But what I want to do is I use the Cloud Explorer now. So I'm going to use this is cube. And Cloud Explorer will look at the plan and figure out 3 variations to run, and then create a PR for each of them. So we have a plan. We have a lot of ambiguity in the plan. Like what is animation complexity, background approach, but I want it to explore design variations. And just hit enter. So this will switch to agent mode because that's defined in the prompt. It will now look at the plan and figure out like what are the explorations. Let's look at what the thinking is. So minimalist, playful, and atmospheric immersive. Depending on what you design, what your design is that you applied, you will see different variations. So And everybody who comes back with a working app in the end gets a pin. 3 people get a pin. Shouldn't overpromise. Yeah. Okay. The MCP gets called. This is the agent being called. It's the run task perform decoding agent, has a problem statement, blah, 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 super long text, allow. We trust it because it's my repo. The PRs run in sandboxes. And I can actually, the next request, I can allow for this session. Okay, the other way I could have done this, if I had the same plan, let's copy the plan. And I could just gone into the Cloud Agent with a good plan and send it to the Cloud Agent, or I could have opened this chat and then click down here for continue it. So there's a lot of entryways into delegating things to agents within these flows. Sometimes we already have a plan. You want to spend some time planning locally in a quick, iterative way. And then a continuing allows you to then hand off the final result to the Cloud Agent with more confidence. Okay, and it's really cool that I can now just switch to a new agent and the rest is just continuing on. So this one is handing off. And what do we got here? So we got a final summary. We have 3 versions: minimalist, playful, atmospheric. Apparently atmospheric is the most complex. Performance-wise, we probably get some problems with patterns and layers. So it's a really nice way to have the agent explore problem space. In this case, it's about design. I could have also given it different implementations or the way the call to action works, maybe different kind of growth hacks of engaging people in bingo games. But there's all these places where we as engineers or product manager are exploring a space with high ambiguity where handing things to the agent and just giving us mockups or a working architectural diagram that can really help us to explore faster. So this did 1, 2, we did just 1 this time. Let's go. So we have 1. Okay, so this is now running. If you also click on it and see it running, and you can do the same in here. You got filtered out cloud, that's why. Oh. And filter on here what you actually want to see. So this is now the Cloud Agent working, and I can follow along in VS Code. You can also open and browser, so it's still planning on what it's doing. So this will take a while. So Cloud Agent usually takes a few minutes to half an hour, or even longer, depending on the task, because it's really kind of long trajectory, complex task. So it's a really good idea for you to figure out like what it's good at. So you can hand off these items from VS Code and then work on what you want to actually take more control about or keep iterating on hands-on. Okay, that was a redesign. Gonna review those later because of time. Okay, let's try out a custom agent to actually make some better quizzes. Because right now we have kind of boring, like love spicy food is cool and cooking, but it's too easy. So we could figure out a problem, like come up with super creative quizzes and do like what is a good quiz? Like what are the rules around quizzes that make a bingo game interesting? And actually I have a custom agent, a quiz master, that has exactly that thought process. So its only goal is to curate icebreaker bingo questions, given a theme. If there's no theme, ask about a theme. And then there's a good mix. I wrote this all with AI, thank you. But like what are good icebreaker questions? It's balanced, like easy, medium, bolder, to really encourage the mingling, different priorities, making sure they're inclusive, make sure that interesting conversations start and not kind of boring, like, oh, you like cooking too? That's cool. So let's try this out. So custom agents, this one is in the repo. It's in .github/agents quizmaster. We're gonna run this right now in agent mode. So we can pick it from the custom dropdown and say, what theme should we do? Tea or coffee? Tea, I guess. Let's do Oh, wait, I actually have some icebreakers here. So if you scroll down, you don't have to think too hard. So travel bingo sounds fun. Creative bingo, I do creative bingo. Creative theme. I lost my agent. This is in a weird state. Just going to refresh quickly. There you go. Okay, new agent. New agent and quizmaster and creative theme. Let's cover the whole thing. So quizmaster will basically be the agent that handles the quest. So all it wants is a theme, and then we'll go off and make me new questions. So think about what other jobs to be done or you have in your daily life where you just want to hand off, like, this is a reoccurring task. I'm going to just give you some extra context, and then reoccurring tasks can be solved by a custom agent. And that's the way we do it with locally. So it already went in. Probably question's going to be awesome. Favorite design era. Wow, that's great. It uses creative software. That's creative. Attended the concert. Love it. Color palette. Has a color palette to love. Who loves a color palette? Anybody? My new favorite color palette is Cozy Coffee House. Yeah. Creative hobbies. Yes. Okay, let's go. We did this right now locally. VS Code has custom agent support. It was previously called chat modes, but we can actually do this in the background as well. So I can actually open a background agent, and it supports the same quizmaster agent. And even the cloud agent has the same quizmaster agent. So these agents are available in the cloud, in the background, in the foreground. So I don't want to care about maybe my quizmaster updates as much. So I can also send it to a cloud. This is now the cloud one, and maybe I do another one because I wasn't sure. Like, creative is stuff, but also like, it maybe deep chat bingo. Or office humor. Let's do this. Theme, office humor bingo. So let's also send it to a cloud, and this will be handled in the PR again, and I can look at the questions later. In this case, so we'll ask actually, because we have a few changes pending, we'll ask if I should include the changes or not. In this case, I don't need them because they're my prior questions that I already did. So let's also submit our questions. So we had the questions pending. The questions are updated. I figured out it's a creative theme. Success. Okay, got 10 more minutes. Who has updated their questions? Or anybody got so far? Cool. Sticker. There we go. So next up, is there a question? Yeah.
I had a question, which was, we've seen custom prompts and we've seen instruction files, and we've now seen this agent that you've built. How do you decide which one you're going to use for different tasks that you have?
Yes, there was a talk earlier today, which I can recommend by me. But the general rule is I usually start with prompts just to get a basic idea of the workflow. If it's like a single shot problem where we're best just ask the agent to do something. So this could have been a prompt. Basically, the new answer to everything, like this could have been an email, this could have been a prompt. But then once it gets more complex and multi-shot and you're working with the agent, or the agent is supposed to pause, which this one does now. I gave it, if there's no theme, propose a few themes to the user if you look at the custom agent. So that makes it multi-shot. And that makes it has to reason over a longer time and stay on focus. And that's where you want to have a custom agent. And then instructions are really more about how every agent should work in a code base. Either the code review agent, is it a code writing agent, is it a planning agent? All of these kind of knowledge and context bits, those would be instructions. But yeah, it's an evolving field. I think it's ever changing.
I also have a question about here. You show the custom agent, and then before you show the background agent, are they different, or you just defined your custom agent for the previous one, like the background agent you just demo?
Yeah, that's a good question. Our terminology is strong there. So cloud and background agents just define where these agents run, basically. So Cloud Agent will run in a GitHub action and create its work in a PR. Background agent will work in a work tree, so it's less isolated in a way because a work tree can still potentially conflict with other things you run on your machine. So but they still run locally and in a faster feedback loop. So while custom agents are really just a file you saw, it's just a prompt, a selection of tools that defines a very specific workflow that can be used by all the agents. So it's a different hats each of these agents can put on to apply more specific thinking, other than I can see your code base and you can ask me anything, right? Okay, seems like we should be close to getting a screenshot here. Question?
Can custom agents be run as cloud agents?
That cloud agent, yes. Yeah. The same agents I have here will actually show up on GitHub as well. So if I go into my repo, agents, I should go to my repo. Maybe show it. I don't know how to get my repo here. Let's go back. Okay, here we go. I mean, in my awesome Bingo repo, which is the template one, and again, go up here into the agents panel. And up here, I can also pick my agent. So Quizmaster is defined in the repo. Coding agent, which is the agent in GitHub.com is called, will also pick it up. So I could also update my themes here. Yeah. Themes questions. So another PR, and a Quizmaster will handle it. Okay, we got a few more minutes left, more like 5. And then we gotta see what James did in the studio with this template. I'm really excited. He's probably now, he has really high vibes, so his bingo is gonna be amazing. Okay, scavenger hunt mode. Let's do, this will take longer. So the multi-agent, multi-bingo section, maybe you wanna bring this to your desk, do it home with a weekend. This will be breaking it down in a test-driven development flow, which means you go from failing tests to passing tests to actually implementing it. But we want to try out something more visual in the end. We're going to do the card deck shuffle. So open a new agent. Let's make some space. And we're going to do a new game mode, where we want to see card deck shuffling. So just show one icebreaker, and you have to find that person that matches, not multiples. And we're going to pick the Pixel Jam. It's another agent, and this one is actually more iteration focused. So this one targets just VS Code. So to your question, like where do these things show up? I can actually say that this one should be VS Code only. Pixel Jam asks, what should we design today? And it designs interfaces quickly and iteratively in code. Meanwhile, while it iteratively applies the design, it will actually keep notes of feedback and decisions I make along the way. So when I'm done designing, I'm not just ending up with a vibe-coded design, but also with a document that can then guide how we actually want to implement the design that's less vibe-coded. So bring into a meeting, like this is the design I made. These are the decisions we made along the way. So let's see how this looks like. Going to do set and then just run it. Meanwhile, we're going to look at the output. Gonna move that here so we can see it, and then Pixel Jam just walks through it a bit. So the other thing that has access to, so it's gonna focus on UI only. And that's a typical problem you have with AI. Like even in software development in general, what is the most critical aspect of your plan? In this case, it's like, I have no idea how a card shuffle deck should look like. I have some ideas. There's probably swiping involved and it should look like a card. But otherwise, there could be a lot of assumption just in this single line statement. So I want to pull out all the assumptions from this initial step until I move on to actually implementing it fully. And this is what these help. So I could also make one for architectural design, like help me figure out 3 different ways to implement this in the backend and think more about all the other decisions I have to make while implementing this. Okay, gets the designs back, and we should get some visual changes soon. What's also interesting with this agent, I want to give it eyes to actually look at the design. We already have a simple browser built into VS Code. So it already has some eyes on what it's supposed to do. And access to logs if something fails. Oh, there we go. The card deck just popped in at this draw screen. And that's how I bias this pixel jam. It's supposed to build the entry points first so I can follow along as it builds stuff. So who has been using Playwright before? Who understands Playwright? Yeah. So the team, there's some people from the team also here at Mountain View. You meet them, say thank you. It's an awesome tool. It's basically, it can automate your browser. So if you think about agents and browser use, it's the tool you want to use for that. It can open a website. In this case, it's a headless browser, and we'll look at the website, find what it can click. It's really a good functional way to bring everything together. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We're gonna keep an eye out here. The other things, so let's look at a few things you can still do with more time. So that everything is documented in the guide.md in the repository. If you didn't get it to work, try it out. If you didn't get the repo to work locally, another way I recommend is using a dev container or WSL on Windows. That might give you more luck. And then we did front instructions, we did make it yours. We went through most of it. The most exciting one takes actually longer. It's the UX video agent, and I can highly recommend trying that out later. So see what it looks like. Just we get the card deck. We got the card deck. Beautiful. Okay, review the question. Has to go to creative, watches design or art tutorials. Perfect. Okay, this is my app. We're gonna push it right now. We can play during the happy hour. Hopefully I can play yours as well and you finished. And otherwise, follow the guide in your own time. File any questions you have. You can file any issues on the repo. This is now Playwright actually playing the game. You can follow along here as well as Playwright tries to be social. But otherwise, there's an end credits here as well. So thank you from me. Thank you from the VS Code team and a few links on where you can watch your other content.